Hi, I'm Matt Dillahunty, and you're listening to There Is No Godcast with Noah Bush.
There Is No Godcast, the official podcast of Northern Indiana Atheists. And now, here's your host, Noah Bush.
What's up, all you non-believers, and welcome back to There Is No Godcast, the official podcast of Northern Indiana Atheists. I'm your host, Noah Bush. Today's show is going to be another good one. I say they're all going to be good, but I guess, I don't know, I guess that's kind of implied, because if I didn't think it was good, I probably wouldn't publish it. But here we are. You're listening to me right now. So there you go. Proof positive that this is going to be a good show, at least in one person's opinion, and that person is me. Today on the show, we've got a triple play for you guys. We've got 3 more interviews. And look, hey, let me take a time out. Let me get meta on you guys for a second. I do want to say that for anyone listening these last few shows who's really not into just like this, the straight up like interview style, who maybe prefers a bit more of like the conversational, topical narrative, just kind of, more discussion oriented shows where, we kind of just dig into a topic. That's coming. That'll be back shortly. Next episode, we're going to get right back into it, where I just love having guests where we, hopefully have some kind of topic to discuss, where it's not so much like an atheist-oriented 60 Minutes type of interview. But, I want to take these opportunities where I have them. The National Convention was a treasure trove, a gold mine, if you will, of opportunities to speak with some of these people who represent these various organizations around the country that are doing great work comparable to, what Northern Indiana Atheists is intended to be doing in our localized area. But as I've said, this show was never intended to exclusively serve the interests of Northern Indiana, the Michiana area, or Northern Indiana Atheists specifically. This show is intended to serve atheism, to serve the general worldwide topic, of atheism, normalizing atheism, supporting non-belief, supporting the cultural viewpoints that I think are still very present today in terms of people who have negative impressions of non-believers and just kind of wanting to combat that. But anyway, my point remains. The National Convention was just such a great opportunity for me to speak with all these people, and I had a blast talking with. I had a ton of conversations that I wasn't recording. I was going around doing my thing, socializing, shaking hands, spreading the word about NIA, because in the big picture, we are still a reasonably young organization. You've got American Atheists. It's a perfect example. They've been around for decades upon decades, and that's why they are the the national presence that they are. And we don't intend to ever be that. That's what American Atheists is for. But we are kind of doing our own small thing in our own small way to serve our local community. But this show is intended to be for everyone, and that's so some of these organizations are from far and wide. Some of these organizations are giving us ideas here in Northern Indiana and at NIA in terms of things that we could be doing. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. And I think it was when I was having my discussion with Phil Session that he was talking about a few of their different service projects where I was like, man, that's a great idea. We should totally steal that. And he was all about it, as he rightly should be. Like, hey, let's do more good, more places. And that's a big component of the show. It's a big objective of this show is to perpetuate goodness for goodness sake. We want to be, and we don't want to be exclusive. We don't want to say that if you're a believer that we wouldn't want to join hands and all fight those good fights together. And I think that that's some stuff that we talk about even in one or maybe even more of today's interviews. So on that note, the interviews we've got today, I've got 3 of them for you guys. It's going to be a triple play. So I'm not sure exactly what order I should do them in. Let's just figure it out right now because I'm recording this, so I probably should make that decision. Okay, we've got 3 interviews for you guys today. First up, we're going to have Mandisa Thomas from Black Nonbelievers. She is, I can't tell you how classy and how well-spoken and intelligent this lady is to sit and have a conversation with. She's clearly on the ball, and the work that they are doing at Black Nonbelievers, it'll speak for itself. I won't get too far into the subject matter of the interview because I will let Miss Thomas speak for herself on that front. But Black Nonbelievers is the organization that she was primarily representing in terms of our conversation. She's involved, I think, with some other organizations as well. But then next up, we have an interview with a camper from Camp Quest. Any of you who are listening who follow us on Twitter, you may or may not have noticed that we follow an organization called Camp Quest. And Camp Quest it's basically a secular summer camp for kids, for kids who are brought up in non-believing households, atheist households, things like that. I can't tell you guys. I've been aware of what Camp Quest is for longer than I've been doing this show. My wife and I stumbled upon it sort of accidentally. I can't remember how exactly, but I think that it was it doesn't matter. So when I saw that Camp Quest was being represented at this convention, I was like, oh my God, I have to talk to someone from Camp Quest. I went over, I introduced myself like very proactively, like they were kind of like right there in my laser beam focus to make sure I talked to someone about Camp Quest. I have absolutely every intention of sending my own kids there when they're of age. They have locations all across the country. And anyway, I had some conversations with their, I believe her title is National Director, which I was like, oh my gosh, you're like, the big cheese from Camp Quest, which is an organization I hold in extremely high regard. And she was just a wonderful lady, very pleasant to chat with. We even had some conversations about the idea of there not being a Camp Quest in Indiana and how that's something that they are, very proactively seeking at this point. And we had some conversations about potentially even my wife and I getting involved in that. And that still remains to be seen. But yeah, we had some great talks, and we had talked about interviewing her for the show. And obviously she was very busy throughout this convention. And when we finally got to the point where it looked like there might be some time, she actually had with her a camper, someone who had attended the camp, who was very passionate about supporting the camp. And I think she's like a high schooler now, and I think she's still involved with the program, but she was at the convention basically like volunteering to promote the camp and kind of share her own personal experiences with the camp as an alumni, I guess you could say. And when we started chatting, Kim, who was the national director, was like, she actually is working on like a podcast as well, and she was hoping to maybe interview you. And I was like, oh my gosh, that'd be fantastic. I was like, do you want to just do it with her and I? Her name was Abigail, and she was phenomenal. I can't even tell you. You're going to hear it in a minute, obviously. But we kind of decided to just go and sit, and she had her recording device and I had mine, and we were like, let's just do it like a dual interview. We'll just kind of have a conversation with one another, and then we can both use the segment for our own respective shows. And I'm not sure. I reached out just prior to recording this to try and figure out, because she told us her name, but her name was Abigail, and I don't know if she would. I imagine she would be comfortable with us using her last name since she gave me her last name in the interview. But I looked around, and I couldn't find her on Twitter. I was hoping to find her so I could make sure and shout her out when I published the interview. Hopefully by the time this interview goes live, I will have heard back. But she was an absolute delight, you guys. Like these are the type of people who I think are going to be. It sounds so cheesy and cliche to say, but these are like our leaders of tomorrow. I mean, certainly within the atheist community, young ladies like Abigail are the type of people who are going to be at the forefront of this fight for decades to come. She's just so, well, you'll hear. She's very self-assured. She was raised in a non-belief household, which is fantastic to really start seeing the fruits of those efforts by parents, raising children in an environment where religion doesn't have to be a part of being a well-adjusted, well-raised young man or woman. And she's just a perfect example. So I was so happy to get to speak with Abigail, and you guys will get to hear that in just a second. And then lastly, I spoke with Jen Scott, who is a board member of American Atheists. So that was pretty sweet to get a few minutes of her time. I believe she is the treasurer, and then she is also very, very prominently involved with the Community of Reason, which is a newer organization that are, I think they're in the Kentucky area, if I'm not mistaken, but like I said, you'll hear the interview, and I don't have every bit of what all three of us talked about committed to memory, but she talks a lot about what Community of Reason is and the type of work that they are doing, and how to get involved and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's it. That's what we've got for you guys today, and I enjoyed all three of these interviews. If any of you are listening, thank you so much again for your time and for being willing to share your insights on your respective organizations. So so take a listen. I don't know if I'll pop back in and do a little bit of jibber jabbering in between each segment, or if I'll just fire them all off in rapid succession. I don't know. I'm just so lazy, and editing is such a pain in the butt. But we'll see. If I'm feeling motivated, maybe I'll pop back in and say what's up after each one. And I got to tell you, since the convention, certainly since the first episode aired with Matt Dillahunty, we've gotten a lot more interest on Twitter. I've gotten several emails. I've gotten several messages through the Facebook page from people. And frankly, I'm kind of in hog heaven right now, guys. I've made comments before, jokingly, but also sort of self-deprecatingly, that like, oh gosh, I feel like this show is just my friends and Facebook friends and family, listening to this show. And not that would be a bad thing anyway, but I always felt like, well, I don't want this show to just be people who know me who are listening as a favor. It would be nice if we had people start finding the show who reacted, positively to the show, who had no dog in the race, who Noah Bush isn't anybody to them, that they'll be listening to the show and judging it based solely on its own merits. But in any event, so yeah, the last few weeks have been really great for us. I've gotten emails from people from Kentucky. I've gotten emails or messages from people from Ohio, from Colorado. It's really, the show is starting to really pick up some steam, and I could not be more thrilled about that. We've had several people contact me and offer to come on the show to share their stories, some really interesting stories that I absolutely have every intention of taking those offers up. But it's a good problem to have, to have more people wanting to come on and share their stories than I have time to record them. So that's good news for me. Everybody who has been sending me those messages, thank you so much. And I try to get back to everybody as quickly as I can. And I don't mean to, it's not a humble brag. It's not to say that I have so many people messaging me. It's a very manageable number. Let's be realistic. But it's just, hey, I've got a full-time job. I've got kids. I've got a lot of stuff going on top of doing this show. So it's a good problem to have. And everyone who's reached out, please continue to do so. We love you. This is why we are doing this show. I also want to say, just for the record, that my beautiful wife Molly, we have been having conversations over the last couple weeks that she's actually had some ideas about recording episodes of her own. Topics that she would like to dive into, segments that she would like to explore doing on her own. And I was like, oh my God, like please, like twist my arm. Like, yeah, it's frankly, I love doing this show, but it is a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Especially for one person to kind of just have to do all by my little lonesome most of the time in terms of, driving the content and doing all of the post-production editing and blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, she's toyed around with the idea of doing an episode on her own, and she approached it from the perspective of, like, not being sure whether or not I would be, like down with that, like whether I'd be okay with it. And I was like, no, hell no. I was like, please record whatever you want. I was like, you can record whatever you want. And believe me, it is going on the show, because that would just be a tremendous help to me and, kind of relieving that burden of doing it all on my own. I've thought about talking to some of the other NIA members about, if they have any interest in producing their own content. So I guess let me just put that out there for everybody. Screw it while we're at it. If you have any interest in preparing any kind of material for the show, if you want to record something, or if you have, any type of interest in recording something for the show that you'd like to submit, definitely feel free to talk to me about it first. It's a little bit easier because, my wife of 10 years is someone who I can trust a little more implicitly to use her judgment to, kind of just say, hey, record whatever you want and we'll put it on the show. I don't know that I could probably make that general of an offer to the public at large. So yeah, definitely though, if you're interested in producing something for the show, it would really help me out. I'd love that. And just let me know what it is you're thinking of doing. If you want any kind of idea as to whether or not that's something that we would be interested in having on the show, I can almost guarantee you the answer is going to be yes. But I'd probably want to have conversations with people about the fact that we try to keep the language PG-13 and all of that stuff. And but I would love that. If anyone out there is listening and is thinking like, hey, I'd love to participate in producing some content for a podcast, but I really don't have the time or the inclination to create a whole show on my own from scratch. Hey, hitch your wagon to There Is No Godcast. This is going to be a group effort. I would love for this to be not just me sitting here talking every week, even above and beyond the fact that we have guests, basically every episode. If we want to start taking more of an atheist 60 minutes approach, where we have different contributors producing their own content, all you really need is a smartphone and a dream. I've invested actually, I think a reasonable amount of money in my equipment to try and make it sound as fakely professional as possible, but it doesn't all have to be that way. Dude, like if you have something where you can record and we can hear your voice and understand the words that you're saying, then frankly, it's freaking good enough for me. So if you've got a phone with a recorder and you've got an idea or a topic that you'd like discussed, reach out to me if you'd like to consider discussing it with me on the show, or just go out and record something on your own. If you have a friend or family member or someone who you think would want to tell a story, be the interviewer. You can be a correspondent on There Is No Godcast. We'd love to have you. So with that, let me shut up for a second, and we will get to the first interview of the day with Mandisa Thomas from Black Nonbelievers. So without further ado, let's cut over to that. So welcome back to the show, guys. We're still here at the American Atheists National Convention, and I am joined by Mandisa. Am I saying that right? So for those of you listening, tell us who you are. Tell us about what you do.
Hi, yes. So my name is Mandisa Thomas. I am the founder and president of Black Nonbelievers Incorporated, which is based in Atlanta, Georgia. I also serve on the board for American Atheists, and I've served on boards of other national organizations. And so Black Nonbelievers as an organization works to increase the visibility and build community for Blacks who are atheists and challenging religion in favor of leaving, as well as we work on diversity inclusion efforts within the secular community.
Sure. And explain to us, why is that so important, particularly within the community of Black people where the intersection of atheism is concerned?
Yes. So Blacks make up about 12% of the United States population, yet 79% of the community identifies as religious, and this is true for a number of reasons, especially historically due to slavery in the United States, the slave trade, and the enslavement of African Americans, as well as the church being a source of support when in face of institutionalized racism and injustice that has been committed against the Black community. And so there is so much identity tied into religion in the church that it makes it that much more difficult for the Black community to understand that there's always been a presence of skepticism, humanism, and atheism within our community. But then there are so few of us compared to the number of Black folks that are religious. So it makes it that much harder to find each other, as well as have that sense of community and support.
Sure.
So, and also it becomes a whole, because there's so much tied into the community identity. And you see this within many of your within Black leadership and Black entertainment, that it becomes a hard conversation to have.
Sure.
Especially when you're atheist. You're seen as giving up your Blackness. There's so many things tied into what it means to be an atheist and then being Black.
Sure. Yeah, because I kind of have to imagine, and obviously I recognize my ignorance and my privilege in these ways, which is why it's so important for you and I to have these conversations.
Yes.
Because the Black community is already so disenfranchised at a societal level, and then I can't even imagine what it would be like within an already disenfranchised community to alienate yourselves even further, even from your own peers. That's got to be an incredibly difficult thing to do.
It is. And now, there are more millennials in particular who are questioning the religion and the tradition and leaving it behind. Now, they may still identify as religious. However, there is a misunderstanding as to what atheism is and what the concept is. who represents it, what it looks like, and part of this is due to the overall secular community's perception, and also who we hold as our spokespersons, which is usually white and male.
Right.
And so, there's also an educated privilege, education privilege that comes along with being atheist, and who supports that.
Right.
And so the dynamic of that is definitely not lost on people of color. And so that's something that needs to be taken into consideration. There's been disenfranchisement, as far as, historically and institutionally, and that needs to be understood, because we often get a lot of people who will ask, well, why is it that most black people will worship the God of the that helped enslave us, but there's also still a lot of white people who believe as well. So, but understanding those institutional factors, and yes, putting that on, it is definitely, it makes it that much more of a challenge and as atheists, we have our challenges in general, but yes, understanding why this would be a challenge, especially for someone who is black, is definitely important. And the fact that we are building up our support networks and bringing us out into the forefront is crucial.
Sure, and I can only imagine how important it must be if as like I said, I can never put myself in a position to understand what it's like to grow up black, because I was raised in all kinds of privilege. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm white. I was born straight. I was born middle class, 2-parent household. I caught all the breaks, and I try to be cognizant of that.
Right.
And I try to ask the right questions to learn, because that's really all I can do at this point. I come from a community right now. I'm in the South Bend area.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned it's 12.5% nationally black population.
Mm-hmm.
South Bend is 26%.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a very heavily populated area. There's a black community, but in my local area, my atheist groups, there are almost no black participants.
Right.
Right. So I can't imagine how important it must be for those people who are questioning to think, well, Black Nonbelievers, and you guys are all across the country, right?
Yes, we are. We started in Atlanta, and now we have 14 groups nationwide, and we have more interest. There's interest in growing and expanding to new cities. And so, yes, and unfortunately, even if there is a decently proportioned black population, most of them will be religious.
Right.
There's just no getting around that. And so really that's why it's important, at least for us to establish some presence. And I mean the secular community in general,
right.
To say, hey, this is who and if you need additional resources, then here is an organization that you can find. And so we can work together on some things, but yes.
Absolutely. And certainly, I mean, like, everyone is welcome within all of the groups that I'm in.
Absolutely.
But it's easier for me to say, well, yeah, come on over. But if I were in a situation where, like, well, I'd kind of feel more comfortable contacting a group of people who I identify with, who have experienced some of the struggles that I had experienced,
right.
So the work you guys are doing is so important, because you are representing an underserved portion of an underserved portion of our society.
Yes.
On one of our previous episodes, I had a good friend of mine named Doug on the show. And he is white. He's openly gay, and we talked about these silent diversities, right?
Yes.
Where, like, you can choose to tell people whether or not you're an atheist. You can choose to tell people whether or not you're gay. You can't choose to tell people whether or not you're black, right?
Correct.
It's an identity that you have, whether you can. Whether you're in an area who is comfortable with that or not.
Absolutely.
And so then to choose to be a second minority on top of a first minority, it's just got to be such a difficult thing.
It is. It can be especially a challenge in dealing with the black community, in dealing with the secular community, in dealing with aspects of leadership within the secular community as well, because there are a lot of subliminal things that people don't realize that they may be doing, maybe some microaggressions or some things that some other aspects that they may not realize, or some of the things that they may not realize that they're doing when to marginalized groups or marginalized people.
Sure.
And so there's an awareness there that needs to continue to take place in this community.
So what would you say to the people in South Bend? Because I'm assuming, or I'm hoping anyway, that more people start listening to this show. What would you say to a young black man or woman who's in the South Bend area, who's having these questions or doubts? How would you recommend they go about getting in touch with you, or what kind of services do you offer?
So they can definitely contact us at our website at blacknonbelievers.org. I spoke with a couple of guys from South Bend, by the way, and they may be with this.
They're probably here with me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so they can definitely reach out to us, and they can connect with us on Facebook. We have a closed Facebook group that is open to everyone, but we definitely support. We center our focus around the Black atheists who need us.
Sure.
So they can find us online if they're interested in starting a group in the area. They are more than welcome to speak with me and our organizers to find out how to do that. It's not that hard of a process,
Sure.
but also I would recommend that they participate with the secular group in the area, because even if there aren't as many Black folks in there, it's still good to have a support system. So to know that, and then also get involved with the local organization so that you can help improve upon what they're doing. Because they won't know sometimes unless you say something, but really it may take a bit of outreach for them to go. So I don't just put it on the group to do all of the outreach. There must be some level of participation for the people of color in the area, especially if they're questioning, because I do think that the group would have good intentions and would be welcoming. So that would at least be a start.
Yeah, and it's got to start somewhere, right? And so if anyone's out there listening to the show and you're thinking, yeah, but I couldn't do that. Yes, you could.
You absolutely can.
Yes, you could. So reach out. I will make sure that all of your organization's info is in the show notes. So if you're listening to this, if you have those questions or doubts and you're feeling like, I just don't think I would have that support within my local community, the longest journey starts with a single step, and there are resources out there for you. I really appreciate you taking the time.
No
do you have
problem.
anything else you'd like to say?
Well, yes, I would like to tell everyone, please, we are Black Nonbelievers, along with the Black Skeptics Group and the Women's Leadership Project, is hosting a Women of Color Beyond Belief conference in Chicago. It's the first ever conference of its kind where all of the presenters, all of the organizers are women of color.
Wow.
And so we hope that everyone will attend and support, because this will be knowledge and information that you will seldom get at other conferences. It will be a concentrated, a concentration of women of color who are working in this movement that don't necessarily get the acknowledgement that they deserve, especially in one space. And It would be absolutely be good to, and then that's what we also do as an organization. We're very event based, and we try to make sure we bring as many people together as possible. And we also have our third annual cruise convention called BNC Con in November. All of that information is available on our website, so we urge you to please take a look and consider attending and supporting. And we're also a 501c3 organization, so donations to us are tax deductible. We appreciate any support of our work.
Now, you said cruise, right?
Yes.
I mean, come on, guys. Like, do you really need to have your arm twisted that hard to go on a cruise?
Right.
And she said Chicago. This event is in Chicago.
The Women of Color Beyond Belief is in Chicago, yes.
Guys, gals, if you're in South Bend, like, we're not talking about, this is our backyard, okay? We're not talking about Vegas or California or New York. Like, it's a big country, and Chicago is not very far. So if you're listening to this and you have any inclination at all, please mark it on your calendar. What's the date again?
October 4th through the 6th in Chicago of this year. So yes, Women of Color Beyond Belief.
That's wonderful. Well, Miss Thomas, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
What did I tell you guys? She is fantastic. That is as classy a woman as I think you will ever meet. She's doing great work to serve her community, both as an atheist and as a Black woman. She is really putting her money where her mouth is. And as you heard her describe, I'll make sure and put links to everything appropriate to the things she was discussing in the show notes. If you want to reach out, I think one of the biggest things is that if we have people listening to the show, particularly in the South Bend area, who have any interest in getting something like that started here in this area, I think that would be fantastic. I obviously recognize, as you heard in the interview, I am not the right person for something like that, but I recognize that there could be a need. As you heard me point out, I'm a member of a lot of local groups. NIA, there are some Facebook groups I'm a member of. But the Black community is very underrepresented in the atheist community. But, I have to feel like there are more out there than who are willing to say so, because of the fact that they just don't have, a support network like Black Nonbelievers. And if you're sitting out there in South Bend or Mishawaka or the southwestern Michigan area, and you're thinking like, well, yeah, but I mean, like, I wouldn't want to start something like this because there's so few people who seem interested. Well, maybe that's the problem. Like, maybe there are so few people who seem interested because someone has not yet taken it upon themselves to start an organization like this, kind of a bat signal to say, like, hey, if you are questioning your beliefs, if you are an atheist, kind of in the closet about it, and you're a member of the Black community and you don't feel like you have that support network, reach out to Black Nonbelievers. There are chapters all across the country, and there can be a chapter here too, and if you want to reach out to Miss Thomas to kind of get some direction on how you could start the process, as she explained in that segment, it's not as hard as you might think, and if you ask the questions, the worst that can happen is it winds up not working out if it turns out, that it's not something that you think you want to do. But if you ask the question, at least you'll know, and maybe you'd be surprised, and I don't know. I think that'd be pretty awesome for us to have in this area, and I would certainly support something like that as best as I would be able. But as I said, I recognize that I'm not the person for that. That's me starting a group like that would kind of defeat the point. But everyone is welcome in NIA, as Ms. Thomas kind of mentioned. It's not like any of our groups are not welcoming of everybody, but it's understood that there is a specific subset of these. This intersection between the Black community and atheism, and it's a very underrepresented and very undersupported minority within a minority, and Ms. Thomas is doing wonderful work nationally to support that demographic. And if you want to participate, reach out to her. If you want to drive some change in our local area, reach out to her. She could be an excellent, excellent resource for you guys. Okay, so moving on, we will have our second interview with Abigail, one of my favorite young people that I've ever met. She is wonderful. I've already talked her up quite a bit in the opening segment of the show, so I won't rehash a lot of that. Instead, I will just say, let's kick over to the interview, and you guys will hear for yourselves how impressive this young lady is. Take a listen.
All right, what kind of...
We'll figure it out.
All right.
We're going to blur the lines. Who's interviewing who? We're not even really sure what's happening here. But let's have a nice conversation.
Okay.
So welcome back, guys. We're kind of doing like a simulcast right now. Please tell us your name.
Hi, my name is Abigail Dunch. I'm 14, and I go to the School of Creative Performing Arts downtown in Cincinnati.
Abigail, it's a pleasure to meet you. And for those listening to your interview, my name is Noah Bush. I am the host of a show called There Is No Godcast, and we are here at the American Atheists National Convention in Cincinnati.
Yeah, it's amazing here. It's so cool.
I know. It's been a lot. Have you been having a good time?
Yeah, I have. It's amazing to see so many, atheists anywhere.
Yeah. It's like herding stray cats, getting a bunch of atheists together.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I was raised non-religious, and I always found it really weird as a kid to be raised non-religious because everyone in my school was Christian or Catholic.
Sure.
And it's just really cool to see so many people like me, basically.
Well, you seem like a delightful young lady. Why wouldn't anybody like you?
Well,
I guess because you're an atheist, right? And that's kind of a bummer, isn't it?
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's definitely gotten. Once you get older, I mean, it's definitely better. But I've been told to go to hell a couple times.
Yeah. Yikes.
Because of that.
See, and it makes me feel old because I'd like to think I'm not an old man. But when I was in high school, I identified as an atheist, and it was really not an easy thing to do back then. And it's kind of frankly refreshing to see that our young people are able to be a lot more out and open.
Oh, definitely.
And then, because I mean, you seem so self-assured and confident and well-spoken. I know I'm just sitting here praising you up. Tell me about some of your favorite experiences at the conference so far.
Well, I got to see some of my favorite people again. Some of the camp counselors from Camp Quest. I haven't seen them in a long time since it's just summer camp. So I keep making fun. And
reunited.
Yes, they're all so lovely. I got a bunch of pins. I love pins. I got to speak with the Planned Parenthood people, which is really fun.
That is cool.
Yeah, and they got Milky Ways here. You know how awesome Milky Ways are.
They got to lure you in with candy, right? That's how we do it. So Camp Quest, you mentioned the reason why we're here talking, right? Camp Quest. So tell us about Camp Quest for any of my listeners who don't already know about it.
Yeah, okay. So Camp Quest is this secular, all-inclusive camp in all around the country. I go to the one in Clarksville, Ohio. It's just a really welcoming camp for kids who would get shamed at Christian camps, which are what most camps are.
Right.
With Christian camps and
I
stuff.
went to them growing up.
Yeah, I have friends who go there.
Our God is an awesome God. We had to sing it before every meal.
Wow. Yeah, even at a YMCA camp, we always did we always did. You know, we would sing Johnny Appleseed after dinner. Woo!
Right. Right.
But yeah, it's just a welcoming place. It's my second home. I feel really safe there, and all my favorite people are there.
That is amazing.
Yes.
I think a lot of atheist parents these days probably don't even realize that there is a place like that that they can send their kids. You know, because a lot of parents when they grew up they went to the Camp Kimball's which is where I went.
Yeah.
And so they probably don't realize that there's something like this out there. So I'm so glad to meet you. So tell us about the camp. Like, what kind of stuff do you do there?
Well, we got a bunch of team games. There's a pool. We got all the cabins were mixed together last year, so all genders were allowed in every cabin, which was actually really a real big step up from what we had a couple years ago when LGBT kids were pushed into one cabin, like non-gender specific kids were pushed into a cabin because it was boys and girls. And
Sure.
The LGBT cabin.
Right.
So they mixed those up this year. We've got camp, we got games, we got campfires, then we got songs, everything you would find in another camp, just without the God.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. What ages? I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No, you're totally fine. 7, it's 8 to 17 is campers and CITs. I think once you're 16, you can be a CIT, and then upwards is counselors.
Counselor in training.
Yeah.
I was able to put that one together.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So, and you guys have locations not just in. You said you went to the Ohio one, right? But you guys are like all across the country.
Oh yeah, there's one in the Smoky Mountains, Houston, Dallas, all over.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
What's I'm assuming, is it just campquest.com or what's your guys' website?
I think it is. I'm pretty sure.
And it's spelled. is it with a Q?
Yes.
Okay. I'll put it in the show notes for anyone who's wants to check it out, because I'm hoping, dare I say, praying that anyone listening to the show gets interested. And I tell you what, if you're listening to the show somewhere where you don't see that there's a Camp Quest around you, reach out to them, because I know I've been talking with their director since I've been here. There are areas where there is no Camp Quest, and they want to come to you. You know, we want to make this accessible to everybody, because kids being raised in a non-religious sense is becoming a lot more, I don't know about popular, but it's becoming a lot more acceptable. And I wish that there was something like this when I was a kid growing up.
Oh, definitely.
So,
I mean, what would you what experience did you have at a Christian camp when you were not Christian?
I mean, I can't look back on it and demonize it, right? Like, in fairness, and I try to be very fair about this on my show, that it's not like everything that happens at church or church-related functions is bad. You know, for the most part, it's just generic morality, right?
Yeah.
You know, be good to people, be kind, don't steal, don't hit people. So, you know, when I was at those camps, we still had a lot of those same experiences, swimming and hiking and all that kind of stuff.
Camp.
But it's kind of like, can't we just do that stuff and not pray afterwards? Like, I'm not, you know, I'd rather just keep swimming for 5 extra minutes. So it was fun, you know, and everyone there was nice. I have very fond memories of it. But it's just it's like being at church, right? And it's like when you're a kid, you don't want to be at church.
No one wants to be at
that's like
church.
doing your homework and taking your medicine and all the other things that kids don't like to do.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I enjoyed it, but I wish that I could have had those same experiences without kind of thinking back on it like, ugh, you know, like,
Yeah.
I wish I wasn't doing all that churchy stuff at the same time, because I think even from a very young age, I knew it wasn't for me. And you're 14, and you already seem very.
Yeah.
You said you were raised non-religiously.
Yeah, my parents both fell out of religion like before they got married or so. Like when they were growing up, just because the constant like strain of church. I know my mom fell out of a religion because her dad was one of the priests there, and he was very involved in the church, and
Sure.
So she got so tired of it, just all of the church things. And then my dad explains it as when he fell out of religion as just like a sudden loss of faith, like just waking up and like not having a part of yourself with
Really,
you.
it was that
Yeah.
that abrupt?
Yeah, he talks about it. I did an essay on it for my class once. He talks about it, and he's like it's like you waking up and you like this. You have this telephone to like to God, to a person you like, and you pick up that telephone one day and realize the wire is cut, and you don't know why. It's just gone. So yeah, I was raised with two people who were very apart from religion when they had me. So yeah, I mean, like it's strange growing up in a secular family sometimes when everyone around you isn't. But
Sure.
I'm actually really glad I grew up in a family without religion.
Absolutely.
Because I don't like church.
And you're here at this. I mean, like you were like rubber meeting the road. Like you were out here like fighting the good fight, and participating in conventions like this. That's
Oh, yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah, I try to do a lot. I try to push for what I what I believe in. I run the GTSA, or the Gay Straight Transgender Club at Alliance at my school. We just finished up our day of silence, which that was hard.
That's fantastic.
it was a lot to organize, but it's a really good experience.
Yeah. Do you have any questions for me?
Oh, okay. What do you do you want to see more camps like Camp Quest come up?
Oh, absolutely. And I think I was talking with some of the folks here from Camp Quest, that I was telling them, like, I absolutely intend to send my kids there when they're old enough.
Yeah.
When I first started this show, I started a Twitter, because you got to have the Twitter, and I was trying to think of people to follow, and like I'd follow one person, and then it would suggest another, and it would suggest another, and I came upon Camp Quest, and I was like, what's this? And I started reading about it, and I mean, I was like a kid on Christmas. I was like, oh my gosh. I was talking to my wife. I was like, look at this thing I found. And like, I followed you guys, and I was so excited about it. I was like, there's one in Michigan. I grew up in Michigan. So, but I also noticed there's a lot of places where there isn't one, you know, and that's unfortunate. Because I'm sure, you know, a lot of people would want to come, but travel can be prohibitive and things like that.
I mean, I know people who come from like across the country to come to some of these camps just because there isn't one where they live,
right?
Which sucks because everyone should have an opportunity to go to a camp like this. Honestly, it's such a great experience. One of my favorite things that our camp does is we do these every night we do like this atheist freethinkers little card. We have these little cards with freethinkers on them. We go over them at after dinner, and we talk about them. We talk about their achievements and how they played into the world. And I think that's important for kids. I really do. I think camps like that who talk about things like that are important. Because you don't learn about a lot of stuff like that. Just like in like a Christian camp, you're not learning about the Adam Savage and
right.
his non-religiousness at Christian camp or
right.
something.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's kind of it's a really good point that you bring up, because I've always kind of been of the mind, I think most atheists would agree, that we're all born atheists, right?
Oh, yeah.
Really, the religion is the weird thing, because that has to be taught to us.
Oh, yeah. Religion is always taught. It's
yeah.
through your parents. It's where you get it. That's
yeah.
where you get it. It's like with beliefs and ideologies, and you're not born like racist. You are taught by the people around you and the people who gave birth to you to
right.
be racist.
Yeah, and I kind of resent when people will say, like, well, you're an atheist, so you don't believe in anything. And I'm like, no, dude, I believe in lots of things. Like, you have to be taught those things.
Yeah.
You know, my parents were lovely people. They are lovely people. They're both Christians, but, like, you know, you can't just expect to just be born good. Like, you have to be taught goodness, and you have to be taught religion, and they don't have to be mutually exclusive, right?
No.
So Camp Quest is a kind of place where you can go and kind of get some of those great moral lessons and those great social experiences as a child, when they're so crucial, right? When you're
definitely.
And
when you're still learning about everything.
I'm so impressed by you. I can't even stand it. You're just you're too legit.
Thank you. So are you.
Oh,
Like,
preach.
you good.
Go ahead
you
and brush
good.
some
Let's
dirt
go.
off my shoulders. You have any other questions for me?
Let's see. Why'd you start your podcast?
Oh gosh, well, I certainly have no trouble talking. That's kind of something that I enjoy doing. I love having conversations with people, particularly believers, you know. But sometimes I'll have a conversation with someone, and I'll think, man, that was a really good talk. I wish I could share it with other people. But I don't just carry around a microphone with me all the time.
No,
so, you know, I like to say everybody and their dead cat has a podcast these days. And I actually have another podcast that I had already been doing about a really nerdy series of books that I like.
Oh, nice.
Right. So I thought, well, you know, why don't I start a show about atheism? You know, I'm in Indiana. Indiana's a very, very, very red state.
Yep.
So, like, these are the places where we have to be, you know, I know that everybody's got podcasts these days, but the more the better, right? Because the more there are, the better the chances that somebody who hadn't otherwise been exposed to an atheistic point of view. I just kind of want to be the casual atheist. That's the jive of my show, is that there are a lot of academic atheist shows. There are a lot of shows where they get really into, like, the theology and, you know, Dawkins and Hitchens and all those things. But I just kind of like to keep it more laid back, and I want to talk to the casual atheist, the closeted atheist, which is, I think, an audience that is not directly spoken to often enough.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So I love to have people like you on my show where people can just hear everyday folks, you know, and I think you're my first, I guess, child interview. I don't mean that patronizingly, but, you know, I like to just have people talk to me about, like, well, why are you an atheist? When did you realize you're an atheist? And share those stories. And I'm really glad that I get to help share yours.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm really honored to be here, honestly. This is really cool.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thanks a lot. Okay, so if you just listened to that and you have kids and you don't intend to send them to Camp Quest, then I don't know what is wrong with you, because Camp Quest they're like my favorite thing ever. So the only thing that makes me angry is that I can't hurry up and make my kids old enough to go there yet. But believe me, when they are ready to go, they are going. And I don't care if I have to drive them, however far I have to drive them to find a location for them. That's going to happen. I'm so excited. And thanks again to Abigail. Thanks again to Kim for all of her assistance with the interview and with just taking the time to talk with me about everything. Camp Quest is something that I'm very passionate about. I think that, not only normalizing atheism among the adults, in our lives is important, but it's so important to help provide support and encouragement to our young people, to our children, to our kids, who are, being raised in an environment at home where they're being taught that it's okay to not believe, it's okay to question your beliefs, it's okay to believe if that's the choice that you make, but that, that they have something like Camp Quest where they can go and be around other kids who share those same philosophies and still just have fun. I think I might have mentioned, I went to summer camp growing up and it was fun. It was fine. It was fun. It was a lovely experience. I have fond memories of it, but it all kind of came with that caveat that you have to be a Christian basically. And if you're not, that could be a very alienating feeling to go to some place like a summer camp. And let me be clear, back then I was too young to really have any kind of issue with it. I didn't. But when I look back on it, I'm obviously a non-believer now. And it makes me think, man, I wish that there was something like that when I was a kid. So Camp Quest, phenomenal organization. If you don't already, follow them on Twitter. If you have kids and are interested in sending them there, I'll make sure that the website is in the show notes. And please support organizations like this. I'm pretty sure they're a nonprofit. I'm not sure about that. I'll have to double check myself before I commit to that, but I believe they are. And organizations like that, literally it's called not profit because they're not trying to make money. They're just trying to do good. They're trying to be helpful and provide a resource for families who are raising kids in a secular way, but who want to still do fun crap like, swim in lakes and do archery and I don't know, whatever, all that fun stuff that you do at summer camp, but minus all of the the praying and the all that other stuff, which is fine. If that's your thing, that's fine. And there are plenty of summer camp options for kids like that too. And that's kind of the point is if that's your belief, then go to a summer camp like that. But if you're a non-believer, there's a place for you too. And as you heard Abigail very eloquently explain, it's become something that was a very integral part of her childhood. She's going to have these memories forever. I'm sure she's made friends who she will have forever. The internet makes it very easy to stay in touch. Like I made friends when I was at summer camp, and I never talked to any of those kids again. You swear and you promise and you hug one another at the end of camp, and you say you're going to keep in touch. But when I was a kid, there was no internet. So you couldn't really do that, These types of camps are the type of opportunities for young atheist children to make and form these bonds and these friendships and relationships that could last a lifetime, and they can do it all with kids who share their same philosophies and worldviews, which I think is outstanding. So Camp Quest, I'll make sure that all the information is in the show notes. All right, moving on. We've got our final interview of the day, our final interview of the convention with Jen Scott, treasurer of American Atheists, which is, I guess the parent organization of our parent organization. You've got There Is No Godcast, which is the official podcast of Northern Indiana Atheists. Northern Indiana Atheists is an affiliate of American Atheists at the national level. Jen Scott's a board member, so I'm sure she's obviously very, very integrally involved with what they do. She's doing great work in that sense, but she also is a member of the Community of Reason, which is a relatively new, I think maybe even a little bit newer than NIA, or maybe comparable in that respect. So listen to what she has to say about Community of Reason. I love what they're doing too. Community of Reason is kind of about, I guess, sort of creating that sense of social community that a lot of people get from church, and that a lot of people, if we're being honest, probably don't stop going to church, even if they don't really believe a lot of the supernatural, hocus pocus of Christianity. They just keep going because it's where all their friends are. It's where they get their sense of belonging and community. And Community of Reason, in addition to being a service-oriented organization, where volunteer work and things like that is concerned, they are also aiming to kind of be an avenue for that, for people to kind of invest in that sense of community and that sense of belonging without having to, I guess, kind of pretend, for lack of a better word, that they buy into all of the supernatural elements that most organized religions sort of require you to ascribe to ostensibly be a member. So listen to what Jen Scott's got to say. Community of Reason. Once again, I'll make sure everything is in the show notes for you guys. If you have any interest in finding out more or supporting these wonderful organizations, all of that information will be available to you. Let's head over to my interview with Jen Scott. Hey guys, we're back. Joining me right now is Jen Scott, the treasurer of American Atheists. Am I getting that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Welcome. Thanks for coming down. And now you're also involved with, is it Community of Reason?
Yes, that's the local group I'm one of the organizers for here in Cincinnati.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, we formed this year. We wanted to provide a community for the secular people in the area. So it's Community of Reason, Atheists and Humanists of Ohio and Kentucky. Mm-hmm. So we cover both states. And we just want to provide a network of support to connect people that don't believe in God and have left religion. We also want to be able to provide opportunities to get education about the issues that are affecting the world, whether it's separation of religion and government, LGBTQ issues, women's reproductive health, all of the issues that are facing us today, to educate our members on what's going on and how they can get involved and take action to make everything better.
Sure. Now, when you say a network of support, what does that look like in a practical way? Like, give me some examples.
We do about 20 events a month.
20 a month?
Yes.
Yowza.
Yeah. We have 10 organizers, so the work's spread out amongst us. We do social events. We have dinners once or twice a month where people can just come meet fellow atheists or humanists and just get connected with the community and realize that they're not alone.
Sure.
Because a lot of people in this area are afraid to say that they don't believe.
Sure.
You go into your work. One of the clients I worked with in the area, they would do a blessing, at a birthday party. And you're looking around going, okay, am I the only one here?
Right.
And a lot of people think they're the only one here.
Yeah.
So by providing the dinners, and we do movie nights, it connects people. So those are some of the events we do. We also, since we're a new group, we're also doing planning meetings once a month to get feedback from the community on what they need and what they want. A lot of people don't leave the church when they stop believing because they have the social support.
Right.
They enjoy meeting and interacting with people and developing those friendships. And it's also a support network for in times of need. If you need somebody to take you to the doctor, or, you have surgery and you need some help. A lot of people rely on the church-based community for that. So when they come to the secular world, they're looking for that.
Right. So you guys are almost kind of like a Nicorette patch, right? Like if religion was smoking and like all the bad stuff is the smoke, but like you still need that caffeine a little bit, and that community. And that's actually a lot of what we've talked about that on this show before, that I agree with you. I think a lot of people are terrified, even if they're absolutely certain that they don't believe in it anymore. They're like, well, these are my friends. Like, this is where I go Sunday mornings. This is my socialization. This is my community. So what you're saying is that Community of Reason basically provides a substitute for that socialization and that sense of community and belonging, but in a secular way.
Right.
That's wonderful.
Right. And we also, one of the things that separates us from religion is that at the Community of Reason, we don't force all of our issues on you. Mm-hmm. If you agree with us on helping families experiencing homelessness,
sure,
but you're not necessarily comfortable supporting, being at a protest or a rally, you don't have to be.
Sure. Whereas,
in religious institutions, you have to be 100% or appear 100% behind what they're saying.
Right.
We approach it in a more comprehensive way. If you agree with us on most of the issues, then do that with us. If you don't agree with some of the issues, then don't.
Sure. Yeah, because people are going to definitely come to you at different points in their journey, and even regardless of what point they're at in their journey, they may just have differing opinions. And that you're saying it's very okay to come to Community of Reason without being 100% in agreement on everything,
right?
Because that's kind of unrealistic, right?
It is.
Yeah, and I think even most religious denominations sort of understand that. That's why there's so damn many of them, right? Because they don't all agree with with everything either. Well, awesome. I kind of wanted to focus a little bit more on Community of Reason because we talked just prior to coming on the air about how I said, a lot of the people who are listening to my show might not necessarily have heard of a lot of these types of organizations. Now, you are involved pretty heavily with American Atheists, but
Yes.
they're pretty big, right?
Yes.
I mean, at this point, most people, I think, have probably at least heard of American Atheists. So tell me a little bit about your role with them as well.
American Atheists National Organization. It's been around for decades.
Right.
And our mission is the absolute separation of religion and government, as well as normalizing atheism. And one of the things we've been doing the last couple of years to improve that is to really provide resources to local groups. At the national level, in the current political environment, it's difficult to make change.
Sure.
At state level, depending on your state, there's also challenges there. But locally, supporting the local groups and our volunteer assistant and state directors is where we're putting a lot of our resources to help connect atheists in their local community. And again, realize they're not alone.
Right.
And it's so important to build that and to get more atheists and humanists active in the area and visible so that even more people get connected and that we start getting atheists in school boards, on county boards, so that we're represented.
Right, because that's important. Like not every change has to come at the federal Supreme Court level, right? Like those decisions are historic, but like we need to be fighting things at the more local level as well. Like you said, school boards and things like that, and getting on, city councils and things like that. Now, Daniel Dick, my wonderful colleague, we were talking just before I brought you down here. And he was kind of singing your praises, right? Because American Atheists is sort of the national presence, but you guys also have a lot of local affiliates, one of which is the award-winning Northern Indiana Atheists. For those of you who may not have heard, Northern Indiana Atheists was just named the Affiliate of the Year, so we're really proud of that. But Dan was just going on and on talking about how helpful you were in kind of the process of becoming an affiliate, and like what would you say to somebody out there who was thinking there's not something like American Atheists in my area? What would you say to them if they were looking to start something like that?
Definitely get in touch with us. We have a great system of volunteers. So we have state directors in a lot of states, and we have regional directors. I was regional director of the Midwest for the past year and a half, which is how I met Troy.
Right.
And was able to help provide resources and advice to Northern Indiana atheists. Get in touch with us. We will help you get started, or if you already have a local group and want to get more active, or learn what the possibilities are in doing activism. We'll work with you. We'll help you support what's important in your community. What we're facing here in the Midwest is completely different than what people are facing on the East Coast or the West Coast.
Sure. It's funny you say that. Just before I think I came over, we were talking to a young lady who was from the Colorado area, and she kind of made that observation. She's like, yeah, it's a much different fight that you guys are fighting in Indiana than what we deal with in Colorado. So that's definitely true. That, and so you're saying you guys are able to kind of tailor your support to the local level.
Right.
Now, if there are groups out there that are kind of already established but are just kind of nebulously operating, so would they just contact you guys to see about actually becoming a part of American Atheists?
Yes, there's information on the website about becoming an affiliate.
Okay.
And it's not a formal contract. A lot of people think that, if I'm affiliate, then, the national
organization. Like overlords.
Yeah, it's not like that at all. It just gives you access to more resources,
Sure.
to the volunteer directors as well as the staff.
Sure.
And access to, we've developed several toolkits over the last couple of years to help on specific issues. If you want to do government invocations, if your local city council allows prayer before they meet,
Sure.
and it's only Christians that are doing it. Greece versus Galloway gave equal access.
Right.
So as an atheist or humanist, you can go in and speak. And if they're not letting you do that, we have a toolkit that provides information on how to make that happen.
Sure, and taking reasonable advantage of that equal access is a great way to make those points, because I think you've probably tended to find that when secularists say, well, I'd like to give an invocation too, they don't tend to like that very much, and it kind of maybe helps them see, well, this is how we feel when we have to sit through your prayers and things like that.
And I found locally that because we've had such a large presence in this area, we're now being asked to give those invocations at interfaith, because the religious leaders know that as the atheists, we're going to include everybody.
Right.
And going to include humanist values, which is usually what's bringing us together for whatever the interfaith is.
Sure.
And we're not going to be we're not going to exclude anyone.
Sure. So you mentioned the website. I'm assuming that's just AmericanAtheist.com.
It's atheist.org.
.org. Okay, so I want to. I may even have to cut that out so I don't confuse anyone who's only half paying attention. It's AmericanAtheist.org, and I'm sure I'll put that in the show notes. You can find that, I'm sure, on Northern Indiana Atheist website as well. Yeah. I'm sure we're linked to you guys in some way. Do you have an email address or something that someone could reach out to you specifically if they had questions?
Yeah, it's jenscott@atheist.org.
Wonderful. Dan was just saying, he was telling me all these stories, and he said, like, every time they ran into a problem, he said, I'll ask Jen, and, you know, that they were always able to get the help that they needed. So we at Northern Indiana Atheists certainly appreciate all of your help and guidance and support, and thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me today.
Thank you.
So there you go. That's it. That's going to be a wrap on the 2019 National Convention from Cincinnati. Thanks again to Jen Scott for taking the time to talk to me. Obviously, at the American Atheists National Convention, a board member of American Atheists was quite busy, and believe me, because I think I did that interview the last day that I was at the conference, and I saw her around plenty. We chatted in passing plenty. And she was always moving because I'm sure she just always had so much to do. So believe me, the fact that she was willing to take even 10 minutes to sit down with me and just kind of chat for a minute, it is so appreciated because I'm sure that she, even as she was sitting talking to me, was probably thinking about any one of the dozen other things that she had to work on during that conference. So I'm sure it was bonkers for her. So I'm so grateful that she took the time to talk with me. And thanks again to Jen. I hope you're listening. I reached out to add her on Facebook just the other day because I was kind of listening to my interview with her, and I was like, man, she was such a nice lady. Like, even before the interview, we had chatted and we had been introduced to one another, and she was just such a wonderful woman. Thanks again to her for all of the work she does at both a national and a local level, for the work she does with American Atheists and the Community of Reason. So please, if you're so inclined, reach out and find out more about COR. Support organizations like that. Like, look, let me go off on a tangent. I know that we've got a lot of these organizations that I tend to plug on this show, and that I'm constantly saying, please support, please support, please support. And let's call a spade a spade. What I'm talking about is either getting involved by donating your time and your energy, or by getting out your checkbook, right? By taking out your PayPal and and throwing a few dollars their way, because these organizations don't run on wishes and dreams. They don't run on thoughts and prayers. These organizations run on money and on the time and effort of the human beings who volunteer to make these organizations a reality. You've got people like Jen Scott, you've got people like Mandisa Thomas, that they are literally getting off their butts and going out. Phil Session is another great example. These people are actually going out and they're actually putting their time and their energy into making these organizations a reality. And I know that there are a million of them. That's a great problem to have, okay? Because 20 years ago, 30, 50, 100 years ago, there was not such a thing as an atheist organization, right? Like, there was no resources, there were no communities for people who realized that that there isn't really a God, or that if there is a God, there's not enough evidence for any of us to believe in any one specifically. Yes, I'm asking this a lot, and I'm sure that a lot of people who are listening, that part of it might just go in one ear and out the other. I'll be honest, when I'm listening to podcasts and they go into their spiel about supporting or donating or whatever, sometimes I kind of check out because I'm like, I'm not going to do that. It's great to have a free podcast to listen to, but otherwise I'm good, dog. I know. So I get it. And if you're listening to me right now and you're having that response, there's no judgment here. But all of these organizations are doing good work. If I didn't think so, I wouldn't talk about them on the show, and I wouldn't be asking you to support them. So I hope you'll consider it. I hope that what I'm saying right now makes even the tiniest bit of impact on the chances of you doing so. Northern Indiana Atheists, I'm obviously that's my primary objective, is to create awareness and support for NIA and for this podcast. This is me. This is my part. This is what I do. And again, to be sort of beyond transparent and meta self-analytical about it, there's an element that I enjoy about this. I obviously do. I enjoy doing this. It's something that I think plays well into my skill set in terms of my ability to talk and to communicate. But this is it. This is what I do, and it is a lot of work. I promise. This is not just something that I can sit down and just kind of snap my fingers and have an episode within 5 or 10 minutes. I mean, it takes hours and hours and hours. And this is what I do. That's what Jen Scott does. That's what Mandisa Thomas does. That's what Phil Session does. That's what Camp Quest does. We all kind of have our role to play. And things are getting better. They're getting better every single day for atheists across the country and hopefully across the world. That people are starting to recognize and understand that being an atheist and being a good person, are not mutually exclusive. And that's what organizations like this are trying to promote, that idea. And they're kind of giving non-believers an avenue and an outlet to participate in service work and community and support and all of those things. But they don't happen by accident, and they don't happen for free. So if you're interested in any of these organizations, please do check out the show notes. If not, that's fine. At least you're listening to this, and that's better than nothing. At least you're hearing what we have to say, and hopefully even just getting that information into your brain is going to have some impact on you moving forward. If you are struggling with doubts of your beliefs, or if you've already made up your mind that you're not a believer and just really enjoy the company, of fellow like-minded individuals, or even if you're a believer and just this is something that you can listen to maybe understand a little bit better our perspective. And when I say our, I don't speak for all non-believers, but I'd like to think that a lot of what I'm saying is relatable amongst most of us, agnostics and atheists. So yeah, everybody, thanks again for listening. I think that's about all I've got for you today. I appreciate you indulging my tangents, especially here at the end. Next show, we're going to be a little bit more back to normal in terms of having people on to just have some good free-flowing conversations. Rather than being quite so strictly interview-oriented. I enjoy the interviews. I love picking people's brains. I love being interviewed. For that matter, I've made contacts through the convention where I've had a couple offers for me to come on other people's shows, and I have every intention of taking those offers up. So hopefully I'll have some information for you on some of those segments and tell you where you can find them in the coming weeks. But other than that, I will see you guys 2 weeks from today. And do not forget, in the meantime, check out Northern Indiana Atheists, rate and review the show. You know the drill, guys. It'll all be in the show notes. We still have merch. I had a couple other people buy some shirts between last episode and this episode, so that's pretty fun. You can go there anytime. That link will be in the show notes as well. Do I have anything else for you? Yeah, rate and review the show, all that stuff. And otherwise, we will see you back here in 2 weeks. In the meantime, don't stop not believing. We'll talk to you later.